probably heard the buzz lately. Talk of dismantling the Department of Education, shifting control back to the states, and completely restructuring how education works in the United States. And if you're like most parents that I work with and that I talk to, you're probably wondering, what does that actually mean for my child? Today, I am going to break it all down for you. We're going to talk about why the department was even created in the first place, what it was designed to fix, how it's changed over the years, and what we stand to lose if it's removed altogether. I'll also explain what this means for you as a parent, how it could impact your school district, and why this is especially important for students with disabilities and marginalized communities. Because here's the truth. These decisions, they trickle down really fast. And if we're not paying attention, we kind of lose our chance to respond. If you don't know me already, welcome. My name is Ria. I'm an educational advocate. Previously was an educator turned advocate, helping parents like you confidently and effectively advocate for your children, no matter what happens at a federal level. So if that's something that interests you, be sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any new information, and let's get into it. Let's start with the basics. Most people assume that the Department of Education has always been around and has always existed, but it wasn't until 1979 that it was officially created. And before that, we had something called the Office of Education, which was something that was created all the way back in the 1800s, around the 1860s, if I remember correctly. That original office did not have much power. It mostly gathered data and advised states. But even way back then in the 1800s, the federal government knew that education couldn't just be a free-for-all. There had to be some sort of coordination and communication between the states. This wasn't about taking over schools or coming into, local districts. It was about making sure there was a baseline, some sort of shared understanding of what kids were being taught, how schools were functioning, and whether communities were really truly being served. Fast forward to the 20th century and things got a little messy. We had huge disparities between states, civil rights violations, underfunded schools in marginalized communities, students with disabilities being completely excluded altogether from their education. So in 1979, the Department of Education was established, and it was established to distribute federal funding, to enforce civil rights protections, provide oversight, and help to close the equity gap between the districts and the states. It was created to solve real problems, and those problems haven't just magically vanished or gone away. In fact, we've seen huge issues, especially related to civil rights enforcement due to recent staff layoffs and funding cuts. We've seen a lot more issues popping up because some of that federal oversight isn't in place. Since its creation, the Department of Education has been involved in every major federal education law, from Title I for low-income students to IDEA for students with disabilities, Section 504, No Child Left Behind, and now the Every Student Succeeds Act. Is the Department of Education perfect? Absolutely not. It has made some missteps, and there really are many things that I would change in a heartbeat. In all honesty, most of the things that I would change would be related to having more oversight, not less, and more consistency in communication across states. But despite its issues, this department is one of the few institutions that actually has the authority to say, hey, you can't just deny a student services. You can't suspend a child 25 times without some sort of intervention plan or documentation. You can't push kids out of school just because they don't fit the mold. That's what really matters here, especially when families are trying to advocate on their own, often without any outside support. So what happens if we take that away? If the Department of Education is dismantled, responsibility for everything shifts to the states. Now, some might say that that's great because there's more local control. But here's the thing. Local control without oversight leads to inequality. There would be no national standard for what a free and appropriate public education looks like. No federal accountability for IEP implementation or civil rights violations. and no centralized enforcement for laws like IDEA or Section 504. Imagine your school district violating your child's IEP. You escalate that concern to the state, but if the state isn't responsive, what do you do? I'm sure there's several of you out there that can relate to this situation. Without the Department of Education, there's no one else to call. That next level of accountability disappears. And funding? Programs like Title I and IDEA, they rely on federal distribution. If the Department of Education goes away, that money is up for interpretation, and it won't be evenly or fairly distributed. Some might argue that this is a good thing because local districts know their population better and they can spend the money in a way that makes sense for their district. But if you've been inside of the school system, you know that when resources are limited, schools will almost always choose to stretch those funds in alternative ways, I guess you could say. And ultimately, what this leads to is neglecting individual student needs. And let's be real, states are not known for consistency or equity when it comes to education. Some states already struggle to just meet the basic obligations that already exist. And here's the hard truth. When the system weakens, the most vulnerable students feel it first. That means students with disabilities, students of color, low income students, English language learners, and kids who are already being left out of the conversation. Without federal protection, those gaps widen. And the people who are already doing the most advocating, parents like you, are left fighting uphill battles with fewer and fewer tools. This isn't a theoretical issue, it's a lived reality in many districts already. And the loss of the Department of Education would really only magnify it. So, what can you do? First, stay informed. Watch not just federal moves, but watch how your state responds. Because these changes, not only do they come quickly, they also come quietly. So make sure that you're staying aware and informed. Second, learn how to advocate effectively. Regardless of what happens with the Department of Education, you still have the right to ask questions, request data, challenge decisions, bring up concerns, and protect your child's education. This is exactly why I created my program, Advocacy in Action. It's a course, a community, and coaching that teaches you absolutely everything you need to know to advocate for your kids. Inside, we walk you through exactly how to understand your child's IEP, spot gaps in data or services, use evidence instead of emotion, and advocate strategically with clarity and with confidence. We don't need to wait for someone else to fix the system, although that would be great. We can learn how to advocate it right now. We can learn how to navigate it, not advocate it. We can advocate too, but we can learn how to navigate it so that we can advocate. Now, inside of the program, we host a live group coaching every month. Our next live is coming up on July 28th inside of our private community. When you enroll, you get immediate access to the course and all of the tools that I've created to help you step into the role of advocate for your child. You also join a community of other parents who get it and 3 advocates who are there to help you every step of the way. You are not alone in this. To learn more, you can click the link in the description, but be sure that you enroll now so you can get in and start learning before our next section coming up on the 28th. I want to thank you so much for sticking with me through this. I know it is a lot, it can feel like a lot, and these can be kind of difficult conversations to have. They're hard, they're heavy, but I want you to know that these conversations matter. Not just right now, but after you've watched this video, when you're out in the world and you're advocating in your own community. That is the guiding purpose behind absolutely everything that I do, being the change that I wish to see in the world. My goal is to empower you not only to advocate for your child, but to create a ripple effect that changes communities. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like, a subscribe to the channel, and a share so other parents who need this information can receive it. Make sure that you drop your questions or your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to keep this conversation going with you and answer any questions that I can. And remember, you do not need to know everything to advocate. You just have to be willing to start, and I'm here to guide you. I will see you in the next video. Have a great day.